Hello, Dr. Vaughn. This is my reading for this week, the Bhutan readings. I'm just going to summarize it quickly. In the first part of the reading, like Dean McCannell, the Bhutan argues that people tend to escape their daily lives for new experiences and culture. He gives us an example. The Bhutan gives us an example by narrating how he took a trip from the UK to Barbados. He narrates how the weather, the Bhutan narrates how the weather was not appealing to him in the UK, and therefore he left his location to visit Barbados, as the weather was the opposite of where he resides. The Butler also discusses how he was interpolated just by looking at the wavy palm trees on the brochure about the island. However, he argues that the pictures about the island does not tell the whole story about the island, as other details are left out, such as the conveyor belt for the luggage at the airport, immigration officers, and taxis at the airport. The bottle also, like Franklin, argues that people do not have time to travel to visit tourist attractions as it is within our community, as culture now is within our community, especially for people who do not like to engage in the physical acts of being a tourist, which is like traveling to other destinations. He gives us an example of this. There's a saint who did not like to travel or engage with people, but shared a love for the arts and British culture. He attempted to travel to London from Paris to see and experience British and art culture. However, he was able to experience everything British in Paris without having to go to London. Hence, British culture was within his location and he did not require the need to travel to experience it. De Botton also gives us an example of pastime, which is a concept described by Franklin as tourists not staying in the moment to experience the environment or activity in the present moment. Instead, they are fast-forwarding time by thinking of other things to do in the future. For example, the Botton discusses how he kept on thinking about the lunch menu, its cost, and its tax, and if taxes would be added to the bill, whilst he was sunbathing on the lounge chair at the resort. He could not enjoy the moment as he kept on thinking about other realities he had left at home. The bottle also, like Franklin, discusses how our tourist bodies are put into danger. For example, the bottle discusses how the hotel food did not agree with him, and he spent a little time being incapacitated because of this. The bottle also, like Franklin, argues that mobility has helped a great deal for people to explore the culture and visit touristic sites. He mentions the aeroplane and train. Just like Franklin, the bottle suggests that the exotic um just like just like Franklin, they also suggest the exotic foods from other countries and locations are transported by the planes and trains to other countries for people to taste and eat a new food which is not part of their culture. De Botton, like BKG, states that food which we recognize as ordinary are taken and put into spaces where tourists can see and experience. Therefore, the ordinary has become exotic. For BKG, this was done in the museums, but for De Botton, he discusses how everyday food are taken and put into international flight carriers for people traveling all over the world as it acquires new taste and interest. Um, The Bottle argued that sometimes what we acknowledge as exotic or seems exotic to tourists are things which our country lacks, and for the Bottle that is progression to urban living and modern and progression to urban state and modern and simple living. The Bottle discusses Flaubert, who mocks his country, France, for being bourgeoisie and feeling superior to other minority groups. He states his love for Egypt. He shows his love for Egypt by immersing himself in the people and culture of the country. According to the Boto, he discovered that Egypt was not only a country he had a perception of from ruin. The Boto argues that he placed an um, the Boto argues that Flaubert replaced an idealized image of Egypt with a realistic admiration for the country. Flaubert uses his tourist gaze at, at some point in his tour around Egypt to examine the pyramids of Giza as he was not interpolated by the objects. Franklin argued that people seek out nature and wish to embody physical activities that will make them one with nature just by observing it. Deboto also argues that nature is an essential part of tourism as it urges man to rethink their identity, especially relating to social hierarchy. He used the poet William Wordsworth to make his argument. Wordsworth, just like Franklin, argues that people visit nature or the country because they cannot get purity and peace in the urban cities. Modernity has become the order of the day in these cities, and so they cannot really experience nature. Um, he um he says that urban cities have derailed. Wordsworth argued that urban cities have caused for the derailing. He argues that urban cities cause ill brings about the derailment for ill. What am I saying? Urban cities which are derailed with ill. Okay. Let me start. He used the poet was William Wordsworth to make the argument that people visit nature or the country because they cannot get purity and peace in the urban cities, which are derailed with illness and concern for social hierarchy. Wordsworth argues that nature was and is still an indispensable corrective measure to the psychological damage that urban life has caused to people. Franklin also added physical damage to the bodies, which is what we read last week as well. Wordsworth embodied nature in his poetry. According to him, nature helps to eradicate class or social hierarchy as it allows us to examine the diversity the world has to offer and allow us to observe the good in each other. And then he gives us, and then through his poetry, he uses like nature to symbolize, he uses nature to symbolize virtues of a person a pine tree stands for strength and things like that in his poetry. And he felt that when you are in the city you become like this see you become like your the people in the city who are more interested in social hierarchy, and you begin to feel like you have to meet that standard of social hierarchy. But once you come into nature, you don't feel that urge or need to become part of any social hierarchy because your identity has been formed and you know who you are, and you do not need to conform to any social hierarchy. And then when was made this argument, people did not people did not think that this would go. People did not believe in this argument, but later on, people later began to make to see sense in his argument, and this led up to nature becoming a tourist site for people that came from the city to natural to the countryside or to nature. To touristic sites became opened, and then people became, once you are in nature you know who you are. And that's why probably after the death of Wordsworth there was um an increase in visiting natural visiting nature from on the part of city or urban dwellers. Thank you. Oh.